Alright, I'm about to venture into seeing The Rise of Skywalker with my friend, who you saw helping me see the end game with. I've been hearing mixed reviews, I've been hearing people say, it's amazing, and other people saying, it's absolutely rubbish. And to all of you, I just say, shh. I'm going in with no expectations whatsoever. I'm just going to see it, have a good time. This is completely unbiased. I don't care about the fan base. I don't care if they say it's rubbish. I don't care if people say it's mediocre. I don't even care if people are overhyping it. No, just shh. Shh. Anything to say regarding the film, Sam?
Just going to no expectations.
Yes. Just take Dr. Evil's advice from Austin Powers #1. Okay, I'll get back to you once we have seen the movie. Alright, so I've just seen The Rise of Skywalker, and unlike most of you, I will say, it didn't suck, but it wasn't perfect. There was only one bit where I just went, everything else I personally absolutely adored about it. Do you have anything to say?
It could have had some work done to it, like the kiss scene and some of the little plot holes and some of the magic moments, but the scenes with the fights were pretty good.
Yeah, basically, my advice of lowering your expectations, or in your case expecting worse, actually worked for a pleasant surprise. I can see why people would consider this mediocre. But I think there were some scenes that really worked. It's a huge spectacle to behold, however you view this film. I mean, certain characters are put to the ultimate test, and Palpatine was just brilliantly done. I mean, you'd think he was already concluded, but it actually makes sense for him to work in this evil magic and cloning and whatnot. And yikes, it's messed up. It's really, really messed up. That was all really well done. Always stealing the scenes, cackling, his lightning, his ritual, him kind of looking like GLaDOS. Yeah, it was all that was done to a T in my eyes. Other scenes done well. Acting, what you expect nothing less from people giving it their all with the material they've been given with. And I'm not really one to theorize, but I went, oh, when it was revealed about who Rey's ancestry really was. Alright, so the practical effects were amazing. There's scenes where they're saying hi to various creatures, and you really feel they're there. Yeah, the effects are done to a T, as well as some other scenes. The amount of detail they put into each and every set piece is just really astounding. Some bits are really atmospheric, like the wave crashing into that ancient Death Star, and some other fights. Some people are saying they finally got lightsabers right, and yeah, there's really creative stunts and fights in there, and really intense scenarios, and then Ghost saying you can do this. Oh yeah, that's something else I really liked. I mean, of course, they had to go big for a big finale, but it was really great for saying, just believe in yourself, go this side, yeah. Certain arcs were concluded well, and the Knights of Ren weren't really used to their full capacity, but there wasn't too much of a mention, so I guess they didn't have too much time, so fair enough, they did have their first share of a battle and here and there. And I like the little epilogue at the end when Rey visits Luke's old home, burying the lightsabers. Old lady says, "Who are you, dearie?" And Rey just looks at the ghosts and says, "She's Rey Skywalker. That's who she is. She's Rey Skywalker." I'm expecting a Les Mis parody of this entire sequel trilogy. Internet, go on it now. Anything else to say regarding The Last Jedi? Because
I had my fair share of talking.
yeah, I'll discuss it more later on, guys.
Long have I awaited to attack the fan base, and now you shall pay for your lack of appreciation.
Spectacular set pieces, epic sword fights, smiles from good overcoming evil, C-3PO's good use, astounding practical effects, some of the main characters had satisfying conclusions.
Emperor Palpatine was done to a T.
The kisses made me go... But aside from that, I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. Honestly, I can see why people say it's mediocre. Despite missing potential, I think it's a good conclusion.
A positive review. Strike him down with your criticisms. Come the Sith.
Hey everyone, Scott Meyer here, Kalmagrucci here, and I've been quite busy at the moment, and I'm gonna be heading away to the Isle of Lewis again, for personal reasons. So whilst it's still fresh in my mind, I'm gonna talk about the Rise of Skywalker. Spoiler alert! Let's just get the elephant out of the room. I enjoyed it, but I acknowledge that this film is kind of a mess. It's like all the filmmakers were competing to get certain ideas out there just to appease to the fans.
This is why you shouldn't have put your expectations so high, fans. I wonder what really ruined The Last Jedi differ with some of the fans.
Honestly, I can see why people would consider this film mediocre. But just like the other films, there's some really good stuff in this, which makes the 9th entry really worth it. The most important thing is that, yes, it does conclude this sequel trilogy in a satisfying way. There's a picture of the Skywalker Saga DVD box set with old Luke and young Anakin. I could have pictured just adding ghost old man Luke in there just to complete the whole picture. There are some things they even fixed, and other things that they ignored and threw out the window. Again, thanks to the fans. And there were only 1 or 2 scenes where I went... But aside from that, I thoroughly enjoyed the whole experience. All things considered, due to certain flaws of several moments in the sequel trilogy of either playing too safe or not taking the right directions, I consider The Last Jedi to be the best out of the sequel trilogy, honestly. Because at least with that film, it took the most risks, and it worked to delve into these deep messages about being a hero regardless of whether you're a nobody or not. It didn't always have to appease to the fans, and the filmmakers themselves said that they would be rather divisive. They learned that the hard way when they went into Rise of Skywalker, of course. They said that regardless of what we came out with, the fans were going to be rather divisive anyway. So for you little babies, just be thankful that it's over, okay? So for those of you who have forgotten what's happened in the previous entries of the sequel trilogy, I'll just remind you of what happened. It's been 30 or so odd years since the events of the original trilogy. People were living in peace until Princess Leia's and Han Solo's son, Ben Solo, got corrupted by the dark side via the teachings of Snoke, and he started becoming rebellious and was conflicted by light side, dark side, being an emo, and he basically went crazy and formed the First Order to take over the galaxy. In shame of training him, Luke Skywalker went into hiding, and in a series of events, a Resistance pilot named Poe, an ex-stormtrooper named Finn, a scavenger named Rey, and a droid named BB-8 reunite with heroes old and new in order to stop the First Order. Their main objective is to find Luke Skywalker to restore the galaxy. Along the way, Rey finds out that she is in tune with the Force, and she is destined to be the next Jedi. Throughout the sequel trilogy, Rey is having an immense identity crisis, which I'll get more into later. But over time, she gradually persists in becoming the Jedi she's meant to be. She finds Luke. Luke is rather hesitant to train her after all the disappointments he's come across over the years, mainly with Kylo Ren. Due to Rey's persistence, Luke teaches her more new ways of the Force, and Yoda comforts Luke, saying that you should just let the past go for a better future. Rey attempts to reach out to Kylo Ren, and they've had strange connections with the Force. Kylo Ren, or Ben as he's actually called, is so conflicted that he ends up killing his dark mentor Snoke and takes over the First Order, just to kill everything! The Resistance is still alive thanks to Luke Skywalker, who sacrificed himself to help the Resistance. All whilst Luke managed to die with peace and purpose and become one with the Force and catch up with his Jedi friends.
So where the third one begins, the title crawl details that Rey is still doing her training, and the galaxy has received shocking news that Emperor Palpatine is somehow alive. Now, I'm just going to say right off the bat that Palpatine in this movie was done to a T. Just pure cinema whenever he's on screen. You know when you're in the cinema you have the big sound, big screen experience of encountering something epic? Well, Palpatine was one of them. Just having Ian McDiarmid come back to play the part with his booming, echoey voice and the atmosphere's brilliant. And it's revealed that Snoke, was not Plagueis. He was actually a clone that Palpatine made, and Palpatine was giving all the voices inside of Kylo Ren's head. And that he's been using technology, cloning, and evil dark magic to keep himself alive behind the scenes all the time. It's messed up. And for you casual moviegoers, it doesn't take long for some pew 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 soaring action. And an alien voiced by Mark Hamill, I'm convinced. Rey is doing well with her training, with the exception of still going through her identity crisis. And there's other subplots and whatnot that go into it, but basically, long story short, it's a big finale, and it's basically a straightforward build-up of the ultimate clash of good versus evil, where good is ultimately victorious. Hooray! So the film pretty much excels at the spiritual journey of Rey, and there were some friends of mine, like Dr. Neiltopus, who complained about Rey being somewhat bland, but myself and AJ praised Rey for being absolutely brilliant. But in the third installment, Neil now absolutely loves Rey, as, in his words, there was some much-needed meat that was finally put into Rey's character. There are some motives and scenes and backstories that are revealed, and yeah, it really does flesh out Rey's character in a good way. Personally, I would have liked her to see tempted a bit more, but there's a big scene at the end where she has a big temptation, so I think the big temptation is quite justified, actually. And I always liked Rey. I never saw her as too much of a Mary Sue character, where she was like super perfect, because I'll tell you why. Her main struggle is her lack of parents, for lack of a better word. And unlike Luke Skywalker, she didn't have the comfort of growing up with parents. She had to survive on her own. Yes, it's made her independent, but it's made her spiritually broken. To the point where she's absolutely terrified at the concept that she's the one to use the Force. And she runs away when that is presented to her. She makes bad choices. She is mortal, people. And her character has even more dynamics when Kylo Ren appears on screen. Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver, they just make the movies. All the actors really, but those two in general, they give it their all with what they've got. And I would have agreed to people with Rey being a bland character, but I think what prevents Rey from being too much of a bland character is Daisy Ridley. It was like me, Neil, and Jackson Hendricks' conversation on Sherlock one time. We discussed that if anyone else were to play Sherlock, it wouldn't have been as memorable, but because it's Benedict Cumberbatch, he carries the show, and it's all the more memorable and entertaining and insightful for it. Same goes with Daisy Ridley as Rey. If anyone else were to play Rey, it would have been kind of bland, but because it's Daisy Ridley, and because she gives it her all, we get an emotionally and spiritually engaging character whom I feel her determination to restore peace to the galaxy, to find her identity, to do what's right no matter what it takes. To find joy in the little things, like those amazing practical aliens who are all celebrating the carnivals with laughing children, and the necklaces, getting emotionally wound up at any mention of her backstory, and her dynamic with Kylo Ren. And Kylo Ren 2's got amazing character with him struggling between light and dark. And this is further emphasized with scenes with Rey and Kylo Ren Force Skype chatting. They keep seeing each other through the Force, and there's this really cool scene where well, it's getting more practical. There's a scene where Rey gets a necklace. They're talking to each other, and Kylo, I will find you. Grab that necklace. And he was like, "Ah, what'd you do? That's my necklace from that friendly alien." Too bad. I got it now. We're gonna scan it. We're gonna find you. And there's this really cool scene where they're in this. Rey is in this room, and Kylo Ren sees her, but he doesn't know where they are. But their forces connections gotten so practical. They have a lightsaber duel. The scene keeps transitioning from the village to Kylo's secret room, and it's so cool. And then Kylo Ren finds out it's his squadron when they accidentally knock over Vader's helmet. It's amazingly well done. The practical effect and the attention to detail in the sets in general, they're always a spectacle to behold, and this whole movie is a spectacle. Even if it doesn't quite live up to Endgame, it's still a spectacle. So yeah, I safe to say I think the sequel trilogy is all about these two characters. The sequel trilogy was at its strongest, especially with those two in the series. Except for the scene where they kiss. That just kind of came out of nowhere. Okay, maybe there was some, I don't know, psychological romantic tension in there as these younglings do. Abusive relationships? I don't know. I suppose in a positive sense, Rey was not kissing Kylo Ren, she was kissing the redeemed Ben, if you know what I mean. But still, there was no lead up to them as a romantic partner. The entire sequel trilogy set them up as rivals, and the kind of Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth Maul, and Luke versus Darth Vader, and with the redeeming part with the latter, them kissing. It was like a fan fiction. Just why? It's only for a brief scene, and then something else abruptly happens. So I guess I can kind of let it slide, seeing how Kylo Ren pretty much used the force healing that Rey did on him to save her life in return, and then he passes away. And I suppose swiftly after that scene, there's another element that I really love. Earlier, Leia was making herself using all her force energy to reach out to her son, whilst Rey and Ben were having another lightsaber duel. And you could say that Leia and Rey collaboratively conquered Kylo Ren and rescued Ben, along with the help of memory Han Solo. And swiftly after the scene where Kylo Ren saves Rey's life, Kylo Ren dies, fades away as the good Jedi do. And then as soon as that happens, Leia's body fades away too. They become Jedi ghosts. And that's really heartwarming. She didn't find peace until his son found peace. That's some beautiful. That is beautiful. Although when everyone's celebrating, there's another kiss where I got, that was forced. Get it, forced. And I think the last 2 minutes of the movie were brilliant to wrap up the sequel trilogy and the Skywalker Saga as a whole. Maybe I'll finish this video with the last 2 minutes. I want to talk about some of the other elements. Throughout the entire movie, there are some side characters that really work, and other side characters that don't. But the side characters that do work, I suppose the ones that have practical effects, like the little hacker. He was adorable. For a brief time he was on screen, I liked it just because of how charming he was with practical effects. I love practical effects, and this sequel trilogy excels at excellent special effects. Again, visual spectacle. And C-3PO was put to good use. He played a significant part in locating Palpatine. They had to look into his memory bank and risk his software. He had to read this forbidden Sith language. It's like satanic language that he's not supposed to read because it's that evil. And it's meant to be translated in order to find Palpatine and stop him. That was brilliant. And C-3PO, we all love you. And there are other side characters that are just tossed in, and they get practically no development. I mean, I like them, but they're just tossing side characters at you like someone's throwing confetti at you. It's pretty at first, but then it kind of fizzles away. I mean, on the one hand, I suppose the film has other priorities, but I suppose if this was like 3 hours, they maybe had a bit more time to develop them. In fact, they bring back Lando. I mean, yay! Okay. I mean, I'm happy to see Lando back, and good to see him in the fight, but he's practically got not much of a purpose, really. Other than the fact that, hey, good to see you, Lando. Good to see you're alive and well. I suppose there's this nice heartwarming scene where he approaches another character that they met earlier, the one who rides the horses so that they wouldn't get hacked. It was quite clever. He says, "Where are you from?" She says, "I'm not really sure." And Lando just heartwarmingly says, "Well, let's find out." And we never really find out what they do, but maybe they're father and daughter, who knows? But that's why they were speculating, I guess. But they're gonna find out. Oh yeah, and speaking of family relationships, Rey, even more spoilers, and some of you theorists are going to be quite pleased. I personally was, admittedly, a little bit pleased to find out that a good gal Rey here
Is the granddaughter of the great big bad himself, Emperor Palpatine.
This catches Rey off guard. It's a little bit confusing and convoluted, honestly, but it does make for some high-stakes drama. When she makes the same mistake as Luke by running away to the same island, only for Luke's ghost to appear and acknowledge to Rey that she's making the same mistake Luke did when he was alive. And in The Last Jedi, I noticed there was a ship under the water, and they point out to that. And there's some continuity with that, because Luke pays homage to Yoda by lifting that ship out of the water for transport for Rey, as well as presenting Leia's lightsaber. And there's even a flashback scene with Leia and Luke, and we already established in Rogue One that they can do facial animations amazingly, albeit a tad bit obvious, but still impressively amazing. And you see young Luke, young Leia just doing some training together and lifting out their face. It's striking resemblance. Honestly, it builds and builds this epic finale of Rey confronting Emperor Palpatine, and Palpatine tempts her with this ritual, and this whole crowd of Sith Lords are watching and cheering, and Palpatine's got himself attached to this GLaDOS-like machine. That part was just epic in every meaning of the word. I even giggled a little bit like when Palpatine said, "Do it!" And even though they kind of repeat Return of the Jedi with this, Palpatine's temptation is pretty hard. He's basically showing Rey that the Resistance are very few in number and they are failing, and that the only way to save them is to call off the attack, and the only way to call off the attack is to do the ritual of killing Palpatine and having every Sith Lord possess Rey. Yikes! But then Rey cleverly switches lightsabers with Kylo Ren from afar using the Force power as the Kylo Ren fights off the Knights who say... Sorry, that's a joke. No, the Knights of Ren, who were unfortunately not that big in the movie. They were kind of built up. I suppose they didn't have that much of a build up, so there's not much of a payoff. So that's what you get. But still, the Knights of Ren, weren't these like the other students that Kylo Ren took with him when he was burning down Luke's school for Jedi? I mean, they're Jedi. They're, they got the Force. I mean, yeah, they're really good fighters and all, but shouldn't they be using the Force and using lightsabers as well? I mean, they do give Ben Solo there a good challenge or two, but still, could have had a bit more build-up. Again, there's a bit of missing potential here and there, but ultimately it does have a satisfying conclusion of good conquering evil. So Ben arrives at the scene, but then Palpatine finds out that he can suck the life force out of them, restoring his health and conditions that we won't need the machine, and that his fingers grotesquely grow back. And then when he sucks out all the force, he summons like the ultimate lightning storm, cackling away like just that echoey, epic cinematic cackle as he's launching like a big tower of lightning that brings down the whole resistance. I mean, like, wow. And it doesn't quite live up to Endgame, but like there's so many resistance ships that come in to destroy all these other ships, which basically destroy planets. It's epic. And then the scene where Rey's like, "Be with me," and then you go into space, you hear the spirits of every single Jedi, and I'm pretty sure. Wait, I heard Ewan McGregor. I heard Alec Guinness. I heard Luke Skywalker. I heard Yoda. I'm pretty sure I thought I heard Samuel Jackson and Liam Neeson in there as Qui-Gon Jinn and Mace Windu in there. Just every single Jedi telling me, "You can do this. You can do this. You can do this." And then there's the ultimate battle, just Palpatine kind of shocker. "I am every Sith," and then Rey's like, "And I'm every Jedi." Ah! Incinerates Palpatine, conquer evil once and for all. This kills Rey, and then of course, as I mentioned before, Ben revives her and dies. And Rey's healing ability that was done to a T was another amazingly practical creature. Honestly, I could go on and on, but make a long story short, the Rise of Skywalker has missing potential, I won't lie. There were only one or two scenes that made me go, but there were some other scenes to make up for that were really epic. And people are going to hate me for this. I don't care. I thrive from people giving me negative feedback in this material. Nom 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 nom. A positive review, come at me, fan base. I still personally believe that The Last Jedi was the best one. People are going to say, "Oh no, The Force Awakens is going to be our favorite one because it's the one that pitched us off the list." And whilst that is true, that everybody loved Force Awakens, there was it played it safe. That was my only flaw with Force Awakens. Aside from that, I loved The Force Awakens. Last Jedi took a few chances, and I loved it even more than The Force Awakens. And this movie, it seemed to be juggling between different ideas, but overall, I think it's a good conclusion. If you've seen The Rise of Skywalker, please let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts and opinions are, and I'd be interested to have a conversation.